Sinclair, it is so good to have you. Thank you. Thank you for taking a half an hour of your time and coming to share the power, educate us on what you're doing in your clinic and how you're using the therapeutic foods. I know in particular, you will teach us about energy, which is amazing. And I want to tell you that Sean used that product every day because he was a runner. He ran all of his life since he was a teenager boy and continued on every day at 5 a.m. And the energy product was unbelievable for him because it gives so much energy and stamina. But you use it in a different way, and I'm eager to hear all about it. But first, please tell us about yourself and your clinic and what you do. And I hear so many things from doctors and patients about you guys. You've made a lot of noise in our world, which is wonderful.
Well, it's a joy to be here. And I just love your work and how thoughtful you are about your formulas. It's much, much needed. We desperately need you in this space. So first of all, thank you not only for your work, but also your advocacy. It's
Thank
just
you.
crucial in our time. So yeah, I'm Sinclair Canel. I'm a CNHP and CNC, and I'm essentially a traditional naturopath that is
Yeah.
trained, and I was trained in bioregulatory medicine. So that's my orientation is stewardship of the body and all about root cause medicine, which is
Mhm.
urgently needed in our time, it turns out.
So much.
Yes, yes. So we have become known for, we have a very large virtual practice, an in-person clinic in Carlsbad, San Diego, and an online campus where we help people with chronic conditions. That's
Mhm.
our sweet spot, is reversing chronic digestive conditions, various chronic liver, conditions and inflammatory autoimmune diseases, things like that. So when you look at that kind of population, one of the things that we have to acknowledge first off is that any interventions that we may want to provide, as part of their care must be balanced against their capacity to receive support, which is constantly going down. So
Right,
people are more reactive now than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly 20 or 25 years ago.
right.
And, my colleagues and I, we often have these conversations, which is why we end up having to make this whole practitioner mentorship, because the tools that we all went to school to learn are no longer enough.
Right.
Whether you're a health coach or a surgeon, you're coming out with the same problem, which is, wait a minute, the terrain is more complex now. And
Mhm.
so if we look at this through terrain theory, it makes a lot of sense because we're having increased exposure to toxins at a very rapid rate. And it's so rapid, it's actually impossible to assess correctly, because whatever lab you're going to run cannot possibly account for the number of substances you should actually be testing for. You know,
Right,
that's just
right.
the
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
You can look at it and say, okay, so there's almost 100,000, chemicals in the United States right now, but actually there's over 300,000 chemical compounds worldwide. And it's noted that we have over 20,000 different toxic substances in our bodies at this time, on average. And you think about each one of those has a different chemical property and set of behaviors to disrupt the body or get stored in the body differently,
Right.
or unable to excrete it efficiently. It becomes a real game of storage and like a shell game for the body. What's going on in the cell? So while we think systemically, we cannot, when we're tackling these root causes of, terrain overload, we cannot just ask the body to push these things out. If it was in a position to do so, it already would have. We have to actually support at the cellular level first, which is why we rely so heavily on your energy by bioimmersion product.
Mhm.
This is a huge support for even the most sensitive of patients, clients, or students, whatever context you're working with people in. Um, their capacity to receive support, because energy increases ATP production. But many things on the market that purport to do that, oh, this is mitochondrial support, go for it, actually have a paradoxical effect. They're really hard on somebody because they tend to kick off too much detox, or they're irritating in some other way. Because,
Right.
right, because a body that is low energy means that they're overburdened by toxins and they're generally highly malnourished, right? So they can't absorb the very nutrients they need in order to heal, which is why your products are so crucial because you've made everything so bioavailable.
Yes,
You
for
know,
sure.
it's
Yes.
really, really important. So energy by bioimmersion is, we consider mitochondrial support the foundation level of every single protocol. You cannot skip it. At this point, we would never add to the body's to-do list. Oh, you need to repair your gut lining. Oh, let's do some joint healing. Oh, you have parasites. Let's go after those. Oh, you have liver overload. Let's break that stagnation up. Can't do any of that until you restore mitochondrial function because the mitochondria are all in the cell danger response and they're sensing into the extracellular matrix saying, is it safe out there? How's it going? And the extracellular matrix is full of junk, to be frank. So you have toxins in the cell, which if you look at apheresis studies, the number of toxins per cell have jumped wildly in the last 10 years. And then you have the extracellular matrix, which is full of junk proteins and all of these, loose toxins the body is desperately trying to sequester at the fastest rate possible if you can't excrete it. But then you have intrahepatic recirculation because the body is not designed to excrete synthetic substances and heavy metals that we didn't evolve with, them being, the free flowing exposure like aluminum, lead, mercury, cadmium. These were all deep within the Earth's crust. And so as we mobilize them up and out and into air pollution and personal care products and, included them in fertilizers and sprayed them on our soil now, and we have a lot to contend with that we simply didn't evolve with. So yes, our bodies are magical and we have our own detox pathways. We have our own strategies for excretion. We simply cannot keep up without some strategic support. And I would never add that strategic support at this level of complexity anymore without foundational mitochondrial support and some other key nutrients because the body simply isn't healthy enough to do it. So that's kind of in a nutshell how we came to rely on your products so heavily
Mm.
and how we think about today's terrain.
Yes, the whole system. It's amazing. I also love your name, Detox Rejuvenation, and it's like rejuve and nation because it is a systemic phenomenon that we are dealing with, and things are for sure, statistically speaking, just looking at the data that I typically go for is like things are getting worse and worse. And interestingly, we so often talk about longevity, but in fact, the longevity as a scientific field looks at the root causes of chronic illnesses. And so why are we so inflamed? Why is our immune system going downhill and so rapidly? And so you've brought up such an amazing world that rarely is talked about within the allopathic circle of medicine. And we talk quite a bit about it within our holistic, integrative medical circle. However, we don't know really what to do. I remember 10 years ago sitting in New York in one of the most amazing restaurants that they have. I mean, they got such amazing food over there. And a doctor who specializes in treating cancer patients was saying to us, how do you get rid of these toxins that we haven't had 100 years ago, but we have now and more rapidly? And of course, the oil companies and all the chemical companies, the drug companies, they're dumping so many toxins right into our oceans, into our rivers, into our soil. And he's just saying, I don't know how to detox these patients. We had a good 4-hour dinner where we talked about different ways, and we have not at that point really thought about the fact that things will get worse, right? Because you always think that wherever you're at, that's the worst. And human nature, we're positive, evidently, but things have become worse. And I think that your patients are probably coming to you and they're doing worse and worse, right? I mean, each
Yeah.
year you're seeing patients that are sicker. And so tell me about your ritual. What do you do first, second, third? How do you educate them? What do you, I'm so with you around less is more in the beginning and really getting their cellular energy up there. The cells need to be able to know, first of all, get the information that they need to let go, that it's going to be safe to let go. And that takes a lot because the body is not feeling safe at all whatsoever. And so what do you do to create that information into the body, feeling of safety for the body to start operating, relaxing into what it needs to do, because it does know what to do. But you're right, we have not evolved fast enough with all the chemicals. And hopefully we will de-evolve the chemicals and evolve our bodies. But in the meanwhile, how do you approach your patients in these?
Well, I think it's really important to understand what has been compromised as you design a treatment protocol and the progression that it takes. Because to your point, I totally agree with you. You are correct. Like there's more and more mast cell activation syndrome every year, more and more chronic fatigue every year, more and more, food sensitivities and neurological issues every year. And, you know, well, one of the things that we have to consider is not just what toxic exposures drive that, but what are the mechanisms of damage that toxins use in the body. And certainly the most profound of those is that, mitochondria perceive toxins as an injury or insult, just the same as they would a traumatic event, a physical injury, and, or indeed that environmental toxic.
Right. Yes, it's
They perceive the
traumatic.
danger the same way, you know?
Mhm.
So that's why mitochondrial support is foundational layer number one, and understanding that when you're looking at somebody, understanding the concentration of where mitochondria actually are in the body is a really useful game. Like there is no mitochondria in red cells whatsoever, red blood cells. But there's 10,000 mitochondria per cell in the liver, your eyes, and your brain. So that's important to understand. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 2,000 in the liver, 10,000 in the eyes, the brain, and the heart. Um, and where I'm going with that is your detoxification is impaired, your cognition is impaired. And so we want to provide that foundational layer of support first before we even start considering how do we open up the drainage funnel? How do we support detox pathways? How do we accelerate repair? And all along the way, reducing inflammation is the game, but it's not the end point, you
Right.
know, because we understand that we could fight inflammation forever, and your entire protocol could be about fighting inflammation, which guarantees they will tread water for as long as they can maintain that protocol. And then as soon as they don't, they'll be back right where they started, and they will conclude that they cannot take a natural health approach or use natural health elements to support them because they didn't see any progress made. It's too palliative in nature. So if we want to use nature's own tools to heal people, we have to consider the order in which the body would like to be supported. So mitochondrial support first. We always include in every protocol nervous system support because we want to, really support vagal tone. We want to get people into that parasympathetic dominant state because by default, they're not there.
Right. Yes, of course, they're stressed to the max.
They're totally stressed. They're overstimulated, so they're in this sympathetic dominant state or they're in collapse, so we say
Yeah.
fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the more we understand about polyvagal theory and what the autonomic nervous system is doing when it's sympathetic dominant, so all the blood flow goes away from our vital organs, we actually reduce the amount of oxygen we're sending to the liver and kidneys, which literally, and to our digestive organs. We're literally saying, don't digest, don't detox. It's not safe right now. But if
Right.
you're always overstimulated by your tech, by world events, by the toxins around you, you don't get enough time in the rest digest detox and repair state. So we're teaching them right away, you're the CEO of your own health, and you get to take less pills and heal faster if you start doing this nervous system support. And they usually resist it, at least Americans do. Europeans, they're fine. They're on top of it. They're like, great, tell me what to do. It's the Americans that are like,
Yeah,
really?
I know. Do I have to get off TikTok? And yeah, can I not really voice my opinion about the election and get all
Right, right.
hot and bothered and argue with everybody around me and on and on? Yes.
Yeah, but so my rejoinder to them is, I totally get it. I thought this was stupid too. But the question is, how long would you like this to take to heal? If you want it to take longer, by all means, ignore nervous system support and I will charge you double because you'll be taking double as many pills. It's totally up to you. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll learn those tools after all.
Yeah.
And it's really simple stuff like EFT, like tapping, or
Mhm.
using simple brain kinesiology movements. There's things like havening, there's different grounding exercises. There's so much material out there now. We created a body of work called Soma Support, which is, a lot of acupressure and different physical movements that are very simple to sync up the hemispheres, impress, express, left and right, really soothing the amygdala,
Yeah. I mean,
calming down the reptilian brain. Like, what can we do to,
yeah.
and it's all physical in nature. We're self-maintaining.
Mhm.
So, like, for example, hold your hands out in front of you, turn your palms away from each other. Yeah. Cross your left over your right and loosely clasp your fingers.
Up the left over the right.
Yeah. So that you can slowly roll under and let the weight of your hands fall on your chest in kind of this soothing contact.
Mm.
You will notice that your body wants to take a deeper breath.
Yes, immediately.
hmm
I
And
love this.
yeah, so you get out of paradoxical breathing, which is that sympathetic overdrive, shallow breathing, and
Mhm.
into, or your body's invited into deeper diaphragmatic breathing, which is what we want for that internal massage, right, of your
Mhm.
organs. Your diaphragm has a 6-inch range of motion, and we're using 1 to 2 inches of it generally.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
How we have forgotten to, in fact, understand and work with our own body.
exactly. Yeah. And so they learn this and they get an immediate physiological response. And they're like, oh my God, I'm more in control of my state than I thought I was.
Mm.
Right. And you can complete the movement with left ankle over right. And you could sit here for 3 breaths or 15 minutes, whatever you need. We've had people do this with their entire families as they sat vigil around a family member in an ICU. Like, this is not just for, easy days. This is for difficult times as well. And you can gently unwind. And to complete the
Mhm.
movement, you would sync up your fingertips like so,
Mhm.
which supposedly increases corpus callosum activity.
Mhm.
And
I love that. I like thinking that way.
right.
Mhm.
So, like, what do you notice shifted in your body? You were talking about your breath shifting. What else?
For me, I am used to getting up in the mornings, having my tea, and then meditate for an hour to an hour and a half and really go into alpha state, hopefully theta. I'm learning how to do that. And so, one of the most important things that I've learned in the last year and a half, and right before Sean passed, is where we adapted this rhythm, is to create coherence between the brain and the heart, right? And we're utilizing Dr. Dispenza. We've been meditating with um, Michael Beckwith
Oh, yeah.
and several other people that we've really looked at their systems and loved it. And so anything that down regulates that intense hypervigilance in our body that has been created and cannot stop is what we have adopted for ourselves. And so for me, when I do any kind of movement, I immediately feel the body starts to come together and harmonize the different parts, work together to create that state of equilibrium and relaxation. For me, it's really important as a woman working in manufacturing, helming a nutraceutical company, working with the doctors, with patients, and with all the different sourcing, manufacturing, bottling, um, scientists for new formulation. You're wearing so many different hats. And yes, women are used to wearing different hats. At the same time, it does create a split in the brain. The brain likes to be organized, likes to be whole, likes to be together. But when we're going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, we're shifting too quickly. And so this is why I believe that social media is not very good for our brain, because the way in which we scroll and go from one thing to another, to another, to another, after a while, if I do that for 3 minutes, my brain starts to just get so hyper and just say, enough, enough, enough. And so I love that exercise. To me, the heart starts to relax. When the heart starts to relax, everything else in my body starts to relax. And so, and two, in terms of thinking, I have different position, and I love that position where you are actually connecting both left and right. You're connecting yourself. It's like I feel my brain coming together and just joining with the rest of my body, because as you know, we're not joined. The brain is like over here, the body's over here. We're saying things that we want, but it never really sinks into the body, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to sink in. I love those exercises of yours. I'm so glad that you're working with the physicality of your patient with these exercise.
I think it's crucial because it takes a long time for people to see results when you're tackling
Mhm.
things with you're like we have suppressive medicine, which is allopathic. It's like I'm going to
Yeah.
save life today. Or if you come in with a chronic condition, I'm going to try to silence it, even though this medication is going to create side effects and have other things pop up. So suppressive medicine. And then we have, palliative, substitutive medicine. And I hate to be combative here, but much of functional medicine and natural health disciplines and practitioners can be substitutive in the focus of their practice. And it
Mhm.
is no longer enough. We have to really ask more of ourselves in this day and age. And it's not enough to bring the body back into regulation and just be like, well, I
Yeah,
told you you'll
right.
probably be fine from here. I'm like, no, you won't. There's
Mhm.
an acupressure treatment or acupuncture, homeopathy, or even a functional medicine protocol where you have 15 crappy orthomolecular supplements and that's it. Go have fun.
Yeah.
It's none of it's bioavailable,
Yes,
We have to do regenerative,
right.
which is like actually root cause oriented and working with the body strategies. So, beyond mitochondrial support and nervous system support, we
Mhm.
we obsess over drainage support and detox.
Right.
But along the way to do that, you have to have enough minerals in the body. And
Yes.
one of the things I like about your products is like the fructoborate. I think
Mhm.
we're going to hear more and more about the desperate need for boron and how
Yes.
everybody is undermineralized. I don't know why we're not already talking about it more, because boron
Right.
is just for skeletal health. I mean, yes, taking that alone can, reverse someone's arthritis or support their thyroid, but it's also about endocrine system, immune system support. Like these things are under attack
Exactly.
now.
Yes. Yes. It is. That's how we actually have been teaching it, because in the literature, you already see the science from 10, 15 years ago, but science continues on to march along and medicine slowly catches up. Sean and I noticed a gap of a decade or 2 decades. And so that was his mission, to bridge the gap between the scientific community and the practicing doctor. And it's difficult because boron has been talked about for immunity, for lung health, to actually nip colds in the bud right when they start. When you take it, it's an intense anti-inflammatory as well
Yeah.
for tissues in the body. And so it's an amazing product. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like, why are we not speaking about minerals more? And especially boron, which is a master mineral. Yes,
Yeah. I became more effective when I start because we know um technically that our food supply chain is compromised. We know
yes,
we are under mineralized with the way food production works today, and we have been now for decades. But we aren't actually applying that, I think, in dire enough terms. And so maybe it's just because I work with a sensitive population and I only see chronic illness. Um, but I assume that someone's basically starving to death at the mineral level when I start working with them. And I
I
proceed
think so.
accordingly, and they get better faster if I assume that they cannot absorb things. So we have to give them pre-digested minerals that are immediately bioavailable. We can't play this game of like, well, you'll start to absorb this eventually. Like they don't have time for that,
No.
and so we have to do significant remineralization if we're going to help them let go of things like heavy metals, molds, and return proper immune responses to their, appropriate balance.
Yeah, I'm glad that you are. Of course, we're speaking the same language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we love that. We love hearing about it. I have one more question for you. I know you have a patient in a few minutes, and that is, and I always ask as a last question because doctors do see, like you just said, the worst of the worst, right? You see very sensitive patients, and
Yeah.
they come to you and they're desperate. And I see most of the people that I work with day in and day out, doctors and other healthcare professionals, do see people that are sicker each year. And so what inspires you in getting up every morning and seeing somehow a better future for ourselves, for our children, because we can look at what's going on and get quite depressed and oppressed and then not want to get out of bed. For me, it's all about international relations. I love the research that I'm designing. I
Mhm.
love looking at all that can actually happen in the world, and I'm getting ready to do more and more. I have a research institute. I'm just thinking about the future and what's going to get me mobilized, because I know that as a woman helming a nutraceutical company, I am faced with all the heavy duty phenomenon of illness.
Yeah.
Every day I get emails about how to deal with this and how to deal with that, and they're getting more intense, just like, of course, you're dealing with that on a patient level and in your education of doctors. So what inspires you to fight for our future?
Um, for me, it's very simple. I don't allow overwhelm. I see overwhelm as a choice, as a state that we create and maintain, and I won't allow it because it doesn't feel good and I don't feel resourceful there. So it's not that I don't get depressed or grieve or get angry or frustrated. I think all those feelings are appropriate in this time. It's
Mhm.
just I know that this is reversible because I get people well every day. And so I'm very, very, very grateful for the work I get to do. And I'm very grateful for my own chronic illness journey, which was serious enough to get my attention, to force me to look at everything new, throw out everything that I went to school to learn. It's like, okay, we have to literally throw out all the textbooks and start over. And so not only do I know it's not too late and that I'm living my life's purpose, I feel deeply connected to God in that process. And I'm just one of many. So I'm not here to save the world. I'm just here to do my part. And um, I know that it's still somebody else's, whoever is sick, it's their job to heal. I am the guide. I don't have like a Jesus complex, so if anybody starts to get kind of uppity in like our
Right.
practitioner mentorship, because we have a lot of surgeons in there. So like, just teasing you guys. Sorry, love you. Um, I'll say like, look, there's only one Jesus, like that role is taken and that didn't end so well for him. How about you just be yourself?
Right.
Just-
That's a great answer.
I mean, look, you are enough. These tools are enough. We get to become experts at the exquisite nuance of how to phase them in and walk somebody home. But it's not an accident that they have to do the work. Illness is an initiation into the deeper experience of the self. I could not have become who I am today if I hadn't been sick.
Right.
I could not have deepened my character, found my inner strength, let go of patterns that were no longer serving me until I was absolutely forced to. I'm
And
not
that's
quite steady, you
That's
know?
what happens so often. I don't know why. Why can't we just make that choice in the first
Yeah,
place? But
yeah.
that's the
You know,
journey, it seems.
but it's true. I hold on to stuff. I'm, inherently lazy about self-care. I'm kind of a wuss. And so I know that if I can do it, where I couldn't read an email or write a sentence, I couldn't stand up for more than a couple minutes at a time. I couldn't unfold my hands that were totally crippled for most of the day. I would drive to work with my elbows on the steering wheel. It's like, I know that if I can do it, anybody can do it because I'm not the ideal candidate. So
That's
I feel pretty
beautiful.
hopeful actually about our future, but because of the pace that people are waking up, I think is outpacing the problem.
I think people are waking up in huge numbers. I do see that every day, which is really wonderful. And I keep telling women that they need to get out there in leadership positions and start teaching because women are needed to create the kind of equilibrium that our world needs. I agree with the Dalai Lama that it will take the women coming up and rising to bring peace to the world. So, what a pleasure to chat with you,
That was
Sinclair.
great way to communicate.
Wow.
Hope we
And
got some good clinical gems in there today.
a
Obsessed about
lot.
drainage, guys. Drainage, drainage, drainage. More drainage.
Yes, and actually it will be great to continue on with this and talk about drainage next time that we do that, whenever our schedule can come together. You are a pleasure and an absolute delight. It's been so educational. I know everybody is going to enjoy listening to you and learning. You will probably get some phone calls from that. How do we do what?
Hang out with us. Yeah.
Yes, come on in. So thank you so much for your time and expertise. And I really do wish you the best.
Back at you. Thank you for all of your advocacy and your beautiful products.